Welcome back to the channel. We're here with a 2011 Jeep JK. We're going to do a Metalcloak lift kit. Comes with everything. We're also going to install a set of Terraflex ball joints while we're at it, and we're going to see what this thing's going to look like when we get done. So this is the Metalcloak kit for the JKs. So we've got the track bar rear mount kit. We've got bump stops front and rear, outboard shock mounts for the front, and then the sway bar drop brackets for the rear. Of course, your coil springs, they've got a little bit different design. They're a tapered design. It's the first time we've installed one of these lift kits, but on first impressions, very, very, very good quality. Everything looks really good. All the zinc coating turned out really nice. It's a lot different than most of the lifts that we've done. Of course, everything's got enduro joints in it. They're rebuildable, nice, you know, longer lifespan of all the parts. Here's his Terraflex ball joints. I also opted for the skid plate through rough country. So this is the gas tank skid for the Jeep JK 2-door. And then Metalcloak also provides you with braided extended brake lines. So that's a nice feature because usually it's just a drop bracket. So we're really happy with first impressions of this kit. So now we've got everything tore down off the rear end except the lower control arms and the drive shaft. That's the only thing we didn't take out of this. Of course, your brake lines are going to get replaced with your longer braided brake lines that came with the kit. With this particular kit, it's fully adjustable. So all these parts have to be installed. Get your ride height and everything settled. Once you drive it, you will actually have to then tune your suspension to the correct pinion angle for your drive shafts. So you're going to feel a vibration. It's either going to be under acceleration or deceleration. That is going to determine your pinion angle, which it's up too high or down too low. We won't know that until we get everything done, down on the ground, and go for a test drive. But we'll recap on that later. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and start reassembly with the control arms, your springs, your track bar, and your longer shocks. So we shouldn't have any other thing holding us up other than sway bars. So this kit came with sway bar relocation brackets versus the longer sway bar links. So we're going to get started and see how it turns out. So this particular kit came with sway bar drop brackets instead of longer sway bar links. This is the first time we've dealt with this, so this is, you know, we'll see how this thing rides as far as, you know, the quality. So this drops down the sway bar. The sway bar is going to bolt down to the bottom of it, and it's going to bolt in the factory location with the factory hardware. So it'll in turn look like that once it's tightened up. Now you use the supplied hardware to bolt up the sway bar. We'll reattach our factory sway bar link. Just keep in mind there's no track bar in it right now. So this track bar relocation bracket is going to be mounted just like this. So you've got a sleeve that'll go in here to your factory bolt location with a provided bolt and a sleeve. Your new bolt is going to actually bolt your track bar up here now, and it utilizes your lower control arm bolt for this wing of this bracket that goes into the control arm mount. It ties into the axle tube with a U-bolt that goes through this bracket right here. So we're going to get this tightened up and get our measurements on our track bar and get it put in. So we got our sway bar bolted up to our sway bar drop brackets. Now we've got our sway bar links. These are the factory rear links. They are mounted in their factory location. We also got our rear track bar relocation bracket installed with the U-bolt, sleeve and bolt, and the new bolt. This is a tapered hole. They recommend that you set this at 40 1/8 inch from eye to eye. That's going to be your measurement to start out with. That's supposed to be close to factory. So we've got our coil springs in, of course, and the rear is almost buttoned up. All we got to do is mount the shocks, plug everything back in, and we have to relocate the emergency brake cables. This is going to run under this rear cross member instead of over like the factory is. So now we just want to recap on this. Told you we were going to show you how this works. So on this particular install, and a lot of these install if you're installing a more than a 2.5 inch lift, you're going to want to relocate your emergency brake cables down to the bottom of this cross member. They run factory over the top and over the top of your filler tube for your gas tank. That'll put everything in a bind whenever you're trying to get your e-brake hooked backed up. So this gives you enough room to where the suspension can travel all the way down and not pull these tight, because you definitely don't need your emergency brakes pulling tight whenever you're off-road. We got everything put in. We just got our shocks mounted. We're going to cut our ties on the shocks so they'll extend down. That's going to complete the lift. We've already replugged in our... Not yet.
Huh?
Not yet.
Not yet. Connect the shock.
Yeah.
Why?
Cause it's free floating shocks. Okay. So when we get done tightening up the shock, that'll be the completion of the rear installation of this lift kit. We're going to go back and put all the torque specs on this. You want to make sure you remember to tighten up your jam nuts before you drive it. You just don't want all that stuff moving around. That'll make excessive movement of the bushings in there. You don't want to bend these brackets either, because it will bend them if this is not tight. So once we get everything done, we get the Jeep back down on all fours, we'll test drive it, get everything adjusted to make sure the pinion angles are correct, and then it's off to the alignment shop. So we got these adjusted to the call out specs that they have on the instruction sheets that you download when you order this lift. They are not your final settings, they are a starting point. When you let everything down on all fours and after you drive it, if you have vibration at acceleration or vibration at deceleration, it'll tell you what you need to adjust your top or lower arms. That's going to adjust your pinion angle. Once your pinion angle is set to where you don't have any vibration under load, that's where you need to set it and tighten down your jam nuts. Everything on the rear now is done. We're going to go to the front. We found the center mark for your bump stop. This is where the aftermarket bump stops are going to attach to. There's going to be a bolt that goes straight through. So, of course, in the instruction it calls out, lay your bump stop on there, get your center mark. But all these Jeeps have an indention already in this cup right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drill this and then step it up with a step bit so your bolt goes through, because there's going to be a nut on the bottom to go all the way through your adjustable bump stops. They're inch thick, so on this particular application we're going to do 3 inches of bump stop, and that's just going to be for this to contact to. So there'll be 3 of those pucks that's supplied with the lift kit. These step bits, you can get them anywhere. These are Harbor Freight specials. They actually do really well for what we need. That's all we need. That way that goes right down in there, tightens up. So these, when you do the 3 bump stop extensions, you're going to have to feed the stack up through the bottom of the coil. Your coil is going to be oriented with the tight, cooled up part of the coil facing upward. Make sure you're in your coil spring seats up there and your new isolator that is included with your lift. So put everything in, and then you can get through to get to this bolt, and your nut goes on the bottom. And once this is tight, installation of the coil will be completed. Super hard to get to. Alright, so these outboard shock brackets are going to actually utilize 3 factory holes. You got your factory shock mount hole, which is right there, a factory hole that's in the bottom of the shock mount, and the factory hole for the bracket that holds the stock brake line and the ABS sensor. The only hole that doesn't already exist is this forward hole for this bracket. So we're going to start out with a pilot bit and then open every one of these holes up to a 3/8 drill bit. Now that that's marked, we got a pilot started, and you take that off. Drill all these up to a 3/8 inch. Once again, I'm going to a step bit up to the 3/8 hole. That one's good. We'll go with this one. That is very hot. There's a 3/8 hole, that's a 3/8 hole. Ow. Alright, now for all those watching at home, yes, those sparks do hurt. Shards of metal. They don't feel good. Okay. Alright, so this is what your finished product's going to look like. Hey, there's a bracket there, Cody. Watch your head. Of course, we'll blow all those shavings out, but you got a sleeve that's going to put in there so you're not collapsing your factory shock mount. Now the shock is actually going to be outboard of where it's supposed to be. Gives you a little bit better shock angle. And then there's the bottom. You got 2 bolts. They're going to bolt that bracket on there, 1 bolt there, and then you've got your bolt that bolts your shock on right through there. So we're going to go ahead and put the shock on so you can see what it looks like. Now that we've got all the components in, we haven't tightened everything up yet. We want to make sure all this is nice and squared up. Then we can tighten everything down. And the last thing you want to do is put your track bar in once you've got your coil springs, upper and lower control arms in. Little side note, you won't be able to drop the front differential down to get both coil springs in without the use of a coil spring compressor. Easy fix for that is to go back there, take the support loose in front of the crossover pipe for the exhaust. Don't take it all the way out, just take it loose. That'll allow the drive shaft to drop down enough to where you can pull the axle down enough to get this spring in. So now we're going to try to get the aftermarket track bar in and in place, bolted up. Excuse me, sir, your hand's in the way. Keep in mind, folks, that this will get adjusted once it's down on the ground and it's at ride height, because it's going to push the axle one way or the other. You want to make sure this is nice and centered up. You want to make sure that your axle is as centered in the Jeep as possible. Okay, we wanted to recap on what we've done here. So your sway bar links, these are the new aftermarket longer extended sway bar links for the front. These are also quick disconnects, so you want to start out when you get these, the top part of this is separate than the bottom shaft and bushing side. So the call out on this is 12 1/4 from center of the bolt to center of the eye. You want to make sure you get that right on. You can, it's really easy to do. You want to make sure you snug your nut up, that way it just doesn't move on you. So the bottom of these links are held on by a quick pin. So you can actually slide this off of this dowel that they provide with you. It actually bolts into the place of the factory bolt location. So that'll get tightened up, and that'll just be a stud that'll be sticking out, and it's got a hole for your quick pin. Also, we're going to show you how you install the bracket for whenever you slide these off. It's going to pivot up to the top of the frame, and it's going to quick pin on a bracket that's provided with this kit.
you.